Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to a viewer replay courtesy of Hayden here. And it's a machine you don't see all that often. It's the Jagdpanzer IV, and that's what first caught my eye. This was just literally on the first page of my replays portal, and I thought, Jagdpanzer IV, I'll take a quick look at the result, because normally when I'm doing replays, viewer replays, I'll look through a couple of them before I find one that I think is suitably entertaining. But in this case, it was just literally the first one that caught my eye, looked at the result, downloaded it, watched the replay, and I thought, yeah, okay. This is going to be a rather interesting one for this channel. And that is my business first and foremost, is trying to entertain you all. These are not necessarily representative games. These are sometimes educational, but generally speaking, I'm trying to entertain you for 10 or 15 minutes. And bring you something that's a bit different and a bit special and a bit interesting. So it's not necessarily where you go to see average gameplay, YouTube. If you want that, Twitch is far better. Although having said average, a lot of the people that do stream are generally quite good players. So the standards are still quite high, but yeah, for replays, they're a bit more hand-picked, they're a bit more curated. So in this case, the Jagdpanzer IV, the reason why it caught my eye, and the reason why I don't see many of them around is it's a bit mediocre. And there are people out there that really do like this machine, and it is probably in the best state it's ever been, but I still think it's kind of mediocre for all that. Now, once upon a time, you had three options of firepower. You had a 75mm with okay-ish penetration and completely lackluster damage, which is obviously still an option. You had a 105mm derp gun, which, well, 105mm derp, you know how that goes, and that was the one I played it with most when I played through this. And then you had this, the short 88, which had okay-ish damage, but terrible penetration. Now, all the short 88s have been buffed, both with their AP and APCR, and so these days it's basically a clear-cut choice of this gun, because the 75mm has only got 5 more average penetration for its AP, and I can't remember offhand how they compare with APCR, but as I say, the APCR was buffed for this gun as well. It's up to, what, 190 something? So It's a much more clear-cut choice these days, but it's still kind of mediocre for Tier 6. You compare it to the other Tier 6 tank destroyers, and the kind of firepower they have, or the mobility, or the armour. This isn't good in any one particular regard, but it's also not terrible. It's one of those machines. So he wasted a round of APCR there. I'm not sure that was intentional. They've also just lost the more forward of their scout tanks. There is still a 12T here though, and well, if they can take out the Stuart, there we go, that was a good kill, then the SU-152 is a bit blind. The bad news is, however, it's a derp SU-152, so if that gun hits, any of these three surviving tanks will just be an instant one-shot. But of course, it also has a relatively long reload, so if they're close enough, then one of them might be able to get round behind him. But there's a real chance one of them might just die along the way. On the rest of the map, well, it's not going so well. Both teams, I should note, have got a derp platoon. Now, their team, the enemy team's lost an artillery already. Their own team has a Tier 4 arty who had platooned with a Tier 5 tank, and the Tier 5 tank's just been AFK the entire game and basically won't move. So we're a tank down from the start. But that's maybe not so bad as the enemy team, where they had an M5 Stuart and an M2 medium. So, yeah, that was less good, almost. Anyway, the 152 gets spotted. I think he popped up to take a shot because he's got to spot for himself now. We also know there's a VK 3001H back there who's just killed the 12T, which is bad because they've lost their own eyes. But that has at least allowed Hayden to get off a good number of shots at this 152. Now, unfortunately, he does not get the blind kill, so he's still very much alive, but he is at least a one-shot. Bad news is, of course, so are they. It's him and this Tier 5 Swedish medium tank left. And unfortunately, it's the hapless Tier 5 medium that takes the hit and is instantly annihilated. That does, of course, mean the SU is still reloading, though, so Hayden can just go forward and finish him off. And the VK should be a one-shot, maybe? No? Okay, never mind. I mean, damage-wise, this gun isn't bad, but as I've said, you compare it to the other Tier 6 tank destroyers, and what? You've got the likes of the SU-100 and the ARL V39 and the Churchill gun carrier, and, you know, these things all have better damage than this. So he skipped ahead a little bit. His last teammates, including the AFK and VK, have just died. And with killing that M12, who never spotted him, fortunately, he can outspot these arties at least, and that, for a very brief moment, left him 5 versus 1. And you know what that means. If he can survive, this is now a Kolobanov's medal situation. So there's the last arty down. That's his 3rd arty kill, so there's a Pascucci's. Whatever else happens, he's got that. That's a nice medal to have. And so it's now 1 versus 3. And they know roughly where he is because he killed the arty, but he was never spotted. So he's got that going for him at least. There's always that element of uncertainty when that kind of situation occurs. You know the general area someone must be in, but without them being specifically spotted, it does leave a bit of room to work with when you're the person that's unspotted, if that made any sense. Possibly not. So the bad news is that KB3 is full health, and if the IS and the KB3 have their top 122mm guns, Hayden here is an easy 2-shot kill, whereas the KB3, well, he's going to take considerably more than 2 shots. Although the good news for Hayden is he's angling terribly. Now the fact that Hayden even is able to fire down into his not angled armour, and it's actually negating the angle of that upper front plate strip there. That's working very much in his favour. He is, however, having to go forward, spot, pull back, fire, go forward, spot, pull back, fire, which is kind of limiting his damage output a bit, but it's also by far the safer option because he doesn't know where the other 2 tanks are, and they by now definitely know where he is. They definitely know he's on top of the hill, and coming up here was absolutely the right move to get the high ground and then use his spotting advantage. That is absolutely his best chance to pull this through. Now he gets a nice hit into the IS. He gets the surprise hit on that guy, but unfortunately gets spotted, and I think it's by the VK. I think the IS wasn't actually going to spot him. I'm pretty sure he's got camo on this crew, even if he doesn't have camo on the tank, but anyway. So finding out that IS was relatively low health was good news, and the VK is easily a one-shot, but he's now sort of surrounded on 3 sides, and it just sort of depends what the enemy team do at this point, well, what the remains of the enemy team do. Now, he's able to get unspotted enough for the VK just to decide to go forwards, which was maybe a bit foolish, but perhaps he saw the KB3 coming from the other side and decided, or hoped, that Hayden would be pointed the other way. But no, Hayden managed to get the drop on him, so he's out of the way, and he can now deal with this KB3, who doesn't have the top gun, and also has managed to get himself tracked. That was like just tracking him just there, where he couldn't get his gun down, and maybe he'd already used a repair kit. He must have, otherwise he would use a repair kit in that situation. Well, that's a stroke of luck for Hayden, that he was able to keep that guy tracked and then just finish him off with his last remaining APCR shells. And he's got 1 left. We know that IS potentially is a one-shot, but the thing is, you can't rely on that. You have to put yourself in a situation where you can take the second shot if necessary. The IS, we also know at this point, does have his 122mm gun. So Hayden can take 1 hit, but 1 only. Now, in his replay description, he said that he did his best to do a silly thing at the end, or, well, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but yeah, basically he admitted that it's at this point he's making a bit of a blunder. Now, it's not so much just the fact that he's come down to this bush to spot. That's fine. He's just trying to see if he can catch the IS coming up from the other side, although the timing is a bit unlikely unless he'd taken out the IS's engine. It's this here, where he pushes out into the open. This is a very bad idea. Now, he doesn't initially get spotted. He actually outspots the IS, so the IS probably doesn't have vision equipment. He gets the hit in, and it's about an average roll again, but it's not enough to kill the IS, who's now got 2 hit points left. But 2 hit points or no, his gun still works just as fine, and Hayden is now caught out in the open. The IS has terrain to work with. Hayden doesn't. He doesn't even have a bush. So this is bad. So he panics a bit with that shot. I think he could have had the IS there. He's clearly realised his mistake and is regretting it deeply. And with no more HE shells and no more APCR shells, it's just down to his last HE. Not HE, I just said HE. AP, I know what I mean. Now this is where, again, a stroke of luck. I think the camo on this must be pretty good because the IS just pushes out, gives his side armour, and Hayden is able to get the kill without being spotted. Quite luckily. So, wow, that was a game. Okay, 4.3k damage almost, Pascucci's Medal, Radley Walters, and the Kolobanovs, as well as, unsurprisingly, a high caliber medal. And despite, as he said, his best effort to give the game away at the end there, he managed to survive, get the last kill, and walked away with 1865 base XP. That is pretty damn good. He basically dominated and carried that match. And it wasn't him alone. He did have to have those people with him on that flank that he was pushing down initially to take the hits for him, basically, as it turned out. It wasn't that he was especially trying to not take the hits, but other people were getting spotted first and taking the hits first, and so he was able to come into that end encounter with full health, and that was critical. Even if he'd taken a hit from, say, the Su-152, which hadn't killed him, could easily have shaved off enough health for the IS to have killed him with one shot at the end there. And that IS shell was exactly average as well. It was exactly a 390 roll. So that was a bit close. But the dominoes all just kind of fell in the right order for that to be the result that it was, despite Hayden nearly losing his head at the end there. So hopefully you've enjoyed that bit of entertainment. And if you have, you can hit the like button. You can leave any comments below. You can sub to my channel if you haven't already. And, as always, stay tuned for more.